Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. So Russia changed its nuclear strategy. Putin declared it yesterday after meeting with Security Council, as he says, on a regular base meeting. However, the outcome is not such a regular one. So what's the major change of the Russian nuclear strategy? Well, now they may use their nukes against the countries who attack a Russian Federation using the weapons from the nuclear countries. Those attacks could be done with the help of the missiles, airplanes, I guess, and the drones. So even if the country is using conventional weapons, but it's with ally of the Russian enemy, let's say, and a nuclear country, in that case Russia may respond with its nukes. It is kind of interesting since we all know that Ukraine uses drones against the Russian military and energy infrastructure. Recently there were also numerous attacks on the Russian ammunition depots, quite successful attacks by the way. Before, the Russian strategy was to use nukes only in case of the defense against the nukes launched on Russia from the other country. So de facto, with the current Russian strategy, Russia should use nukes almost every day from now on, because Ukraine strikes Russia really hard. But something tells me that Russia will not use nukes for now. Yes, I believe that in the future, unfortunately, there will be a nuclear war, maybe tactical nukes might be used, but at this stage I don't think that Russia will escalate to that point. Here, most of the media sources agree that it's the attempt of the Russian regime to push west for not supporting Ukraine with the long-range missiles, and as we see, this blackmail works. For now, there are no signs that the White House administration gives the permission for Ukraine to use ATACMS on the Russian territory. But at the same time, there is some of the good news that Ukraine might use Storm Shadow cruise missiles on Russian territory, with agreement both from the United Kingdom and from the United States. Some of the presidents and leaders started commenting about this issue. For example, a Polish president Duda said that whoever first uses nukes will be cursed. Well, first of all, nukes have already been used during the Second World War. Yes, by the time people didn't know what that might bring. But about the curse, well, Putin, I think, is already cursed after what he's done. Guys, if you want to support the job that I do daily on YouTube, you may also join my Patreon. The link for my Patreon page is available right in the video description below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation. The Ukrainian officials relying on intelligence services claim that Russia is preparing the strikes on nuclear infrastructure of Ukraine. We are speaking about nuclear power plants. As we know, the largest Ukrainian nuclear power plant is under control by the Russian Federation, but Ukraine has 3 more working nuclear power plants. By the way, Chernobyl is partially also working. For the reactor to cool down completely, it might take many years. However, it's in idle state and electricity is not being produced in Chernobyl. Khmelnytsky has 2 of the reactors working and 2, I guess, under the maintenance or under construction. The Rivne nuclear power plant has 4 of the reactors, and by the way, Rivne is not that far away from the Belarus border. And there are 3 reactors of the South Ukraine nuclear power plant. It's in Mykolaiv Oblast. Well, what Russians want to do, according to our intelligence service, they want to hit not the nuclear power plants themselves, but the wiring, logistics and the substations which are leading from nuclear power plants to consumers. The issue that nuclear power plant needs those power lines to withdraw the energy, and those substations are also used to power the nuclear power plant itself. Yeah, obviously there are some of the emergency electrical supplies, diesel generators, but those are emergency. I think that it will be impossible to control the outcome of those strikes, and definitely it might lead to nuclear disaster even in that case. That's why Ukraine is so concerned now about the nuclear power plants, and yes, there are some of the voices from our neighbors that in case those nuclear power plants are attacked, those countries will close the skies over Ukraine. It's kind of the strange logic. It's like police telling to the victim, knowing the name of the killer exactly, please come to us, then you are killed and we're gonna protect you. As you see guys, there's a vast field for the possible provocations from the Russian side, and unfortunately our Western partners still decide to wait. Just remember how Russia burned something inside the cooling towers of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. There is nothing inside to burn actually, so they put something to create some sort of fire to show those images worldwide, but actually those towers are made out of cement and metal, and there is the water inside, that's it. By the way, here is Grossi inside the coolant tower. Russia removed all of the materials which burned there, so they were not able to find out what happened. But clearly, as I told you, there is nothing to burn, just cement constructions, that's it. Water is not burning that hard, probably those were the car tires. But for Grossi, everything is fine. He is a hug man. His organization does nothing to protect the nuclear security of Europe and entire world. United Nations, Atomic Agency, Red Cross, those are, I call, bullshit organizations that really do nothing, that there is the real issue, the big war. Alright, by the time I'm recording this video, there's the meeting between Zelensky and Joe Biden. They're meeting in the White House or in Capitol, I'm not sure. Well, even though Ukraine has obtained a new military package, it's around 8 billion United States dollars, but I understand that for the Russian military budget, it's really nothing. They waste those kind of the resources in a matter of couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks maximum. If you want to stop the Russian Federation from achieving its goals, not only in Ukraine, but in the rest of the ex-Soviet countries, there should be the full military support of Ukraine, like it was done by the United States during the Second World War. Then the brand new technologies were supplied to the Soviet Union, the country which was not even friendly to the United States. I mean, it started the Second World War on the side of Hitler from the occupation of Poland, and also it was the communist country. Come on. Here Ukraine is the total ally of the United States of America, and we have barely anything to fight or to stop the Russian assaults in Ukraine. And there will be no any main decisions taken to support Ukraine with the long-range missiles and so on. The current White House administration is not willing to do it because they are afraid of escalation, because you see, Putin changed its nuclear strategy, but Putin is bluffing. Putin wants to show that he is the boss, he wants to threaten West, and it seems like he is achieving his goal after all, because leaders and politicians are afraid. Probably with Kamala Harris, if she becomes the next United States president, at least Ukraine has some sort of the support. But with Donald Trump, oh my god. In that case, it would be very hard for Ukraine to withstand its sovereignty. Because we already see that Donald Trump wants to trade Ukrainian territory for some sort of the temporary peace agreement with Russia, but Russia will attack Ukraine again without real security guarantees. Russia will take Kyiv in that case. So honestly guys, I do not expect something good for Ukraine after the next United States presidential elections. It could be not good variant with just limited support of Ukraine, or the worst variant where support will be ceased completely. It's hard for me to admit that blackmail of Putin works on the Western politicians. Ukraine tries to show that there are no red lines for Russia actually. The Ukrainian army, let's say openly, occupied the part of the Russian territory, the big part, and there was no real response from Russia. Putin was calling it as a situation, not even a military conflict. For Putin, this is not really convenient to recognize that Russia is being attacked by the other country, because in that case, Russia should have used their full power, including nuclear weaponry, against the country which attacked Russia. But Putin doesn't want to escalate really till that level. He's bluffing openly about his new nuclear strategy. He was bluffing about it way before, like from the very beginning of the war. He called like, if someone helps Ukraine, we're gonna use all of our forces, including strategic nuclear missiles. But he didn't do it, he just continued to tell about it, that's it. And the more West afraid of it, the more Putin will tell about it. He will push, we're gonna use nukes, we're gonna use nukes. So the question is, then Putin should stop. What's the point of no return? Like, can Putin occupy Baltic countries for the Western politicians to not afraid of the nuclear war with Russia? I think that we really lost the logic here. If you let Bully to do what he wants, he will beat all of the class. Unfortunately for now, Ukraine is unable to change that attitude. And you know, the politicians in the United States are biting each other, and they involve every topic to reach some of the political points. For example, Donald Trump is set on Zelensky like a baby because Zelensky went to Pennsylvania. He visited their factory which produces the artillery shells, especially for Ukraine. Yes, that entire factory works for Ukraine. And there was a huge scandal among the Republican side, the MAGA side. They call for investigation, and why Zelensky met with Democrats there only because Pennsylvania actually plays a great role in the future elections. It's a swing state state and it might be decisive for the future elections, so Republicans are really angry. They even called to get rid of the Ukrainian ambassador in the United States. Mike Johnson called for it, which is crazy. How can he order to some of the other country what to do with the ambassadors in the United States?
Look at the war in Ukraine, and I think it's something we have to have a quick discussion about because the president of Ukraine is in our country and he's making little nasty aspersions toward your favorite president, me.
Your favorite president, me. Oh my god, he's so narcissistic. You see, Donald Trump really took it personal. For him, Zelensky is the direct enemy, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, because Zelensky represents Ukraine now, Ukrainian government, and if Trump wins, obviously it will not be a good thing for Ukraine. I'm not going through his speech because mainly it's the same from rally to rally. Trump has more words of lies than any other politician. I understand that because I know Ukrainian topic and I have some education, like basic education in university, in academy, master's degree, so I know the things of history and other stuff. I already busted the speech of Donald Trump in one of my previous videos, so I think it's not interesting for you any longer. The thing for me is to show that definitely there is a huge conflict between possible Trump's administration and Ukrainian government in the face of Zelensky. What is interesting that the Ukrainian delegation refused to meet for now with Donald Trump. At least according to the Times magazine, they say that the Ukrainian delegation hesitates to give the word or the points for Donald Trump ahead of the presidential elections. Kind of interesting. Well, I guess at first Donald Trump refused to meet with Zelensky. He said about it a couple of days ago, but now Ukrainian delegation also refused to do so. And The Economist came out with an article saying that the war is going badly. Ukraine and its allies might change course. Basically, they mentioned everything that I'm telling you in my videos, that Ukraine requires more military support and even NATO membership, otherwise there is basically no future victory scenario. The issue for Ukraine that it faces not just the pressure on the battlefield, but behind the front lines if we speak about the energy infrastructure that was mainly destroyed by Russia. Also abroad, for example, in Europe, there are many of the far-right parties who are winning the elections and who do not support Ukraine, who are willing to seize the support, as Donald Trump says. And Ukraine itself also has its own problems with the government and the army. Everything of that require reforms. And they put two of the main things separately. First of all, Ukraine requires more of the weaponry, and Ukraine may join the NATO alliance, even being partially occupied by Russia, to guarantee the security and sovereignty of Ukraine. They conclude that if West cancels the support of Ukraine, the other alliances with the United States will also fall. If Ukraine is left alone, it will be a massive disaster to the world's security. And some of the countries like China, Iran, North Korea and Russia itself will continue the escalation in many other points of our globe. I would add that Ukraine is the example of why you shouldn't give up nuclear weaponry. Ukraine gave it up under the pressure mostly from the United States, but also from other countries like United Kingdom and Russia obviously. The Ukrainian government signed the paper together with representatives from those countries for the security guarantees, but after all it appeared that it was just a memorandum, so the piece of paper was nothing. And one of the countries which guaranteed the security of Ukraine attacked Ukraine itself, Russian Federation. Who would have thought that it might happen, right? It means that if you do not have nukes, well, you may be unsecured, so it's better to have the nukes after all, and we will see many more countries actually having or obtaining somehow nuclear weaponry. And the more countries have nukes, the more difficult it will be to control everyone, especially with the useless institutions like United Nations. For this reason, especially if Ukraine loses this war, I believe 100% that the nuclear war is imminent. And Zelensky met with Kamala Harris. Kamala agrees with the plan of Zelensky how this war should be finished. Yes, we understand that for now it's unrealistic because Russia has way more resources compared to Ukraine, but still she's more determined to support Ukraine. She said that some of the politicians of the United States want to force Ukraine to give up its territories, and it's nothing more than capitulation. It's not negotiation policy, it's capitulation. Totally agree with that. The occupied territories should never ever recognized as the Russian territories, and Ukraine should go to NATO. That's the point. I already told you about this possible scenario if West doesn't want to supply lots of the ammunition for Ukraine. The Ukrainian controlled territory goes to NATO, and that's it. If Russia attacks more territory, it attacks the NATO country, and there will be the adequate response from NATO by conventional forces, no nukes. If Russia uses nukes, well, it's the other story. We understand that the stakes are high, but if we let Russia to occupy Ukraine, it will turn into absolute madness. Alright, in a new military package, Ukraine obtains the JSOS gliding bombs. Those are bigger bombs compared to JDAMs. Especially this variant with the cluster ammunition may help Ukraine a lot, but there is one big issue with this gliding bomb. Even though it may fly for 110 kilometers, which is roughly 70 miles, it should be dropped from the very high altitude, and the Ukrainian Air Force just cannot allow to fly that high because it will be spotted by the Russian air defense radars and the Russian fighter jets, so it's very risky to operate those gliding bombs very close to the Russian border, and that's kind of the concerning. It means that the range of 110 kilometers will reduce gradually. The only good option for Ukraine to strike the Russian facilities on the Russian territory is to have the approval for ATACMS missiles. There are also talks ongoing about the white phosphorus munition, but White House keeps saying no, so it's opposing the recommendation of Pentagon to provide those shells for Ukraine, as they say for the smoke walls. But I think that those will be used against the Russian forces, because Russia uses white phosphorus shells definitely against Ukrainian forces. For example, this is Davydov just this evening. Russia uses those kind of the shells very similar to phosphorus. The United Kingdom to send more of the AS-90 artillery systems to Ukraine. We are speaking about 16 of the units. Initially they say about the 12 units and now 16, which is a good figure, and Ukraine will obtain those in the coming days, hopefully. 10 has already been delivered, 6 more to follow the coming weeks. Awesome. Germany will also increase the military support of Ukraine by 400 million euros. Thank you so much, Germany. The Wall Street Journal published the information that China's newest nuclear submarine sank. Wow, nuclear submarine sank. It could bring some of the disaster to the region. Well, it all depends on particular case. In Soviet Union, there were some of the accidents with nuclear submarines, but it never went to the nuclear disaster. Hopefully, it will not lead in this case either. Guys, about the updates from the front lines, please check out my previous video. For now, don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot, and as usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.